Hey guys, tonight's talk is about never hold back. And we really talked about never holding back from truth, but also never holding back from grace. I really hope it contributes and helps you. Just let me know in the comments your big takeaway. Love you guys. This is also on the podcast if you need to listen to this on the go. All right, see ya. We're going to start out today in Jeremiah 29. Many of you guys know, what is the famous verse in Jeremiah 29? Jeremiah 29:11. We're going to share some context to that. So, as always, we're looking at our culture. So we've already done never stop learning, never compare, never give up, and now today is never hold back. And I'm really excited for what we have for this. Now, in leadership, I think in life itself, especially in the Christian walk, but I really think as Christians, we're just called to be leaders of at least somebody, right? Of someone. I think God calls us to be faithful to whoever's following us, and I think He gives us more and more. But in leadership, very often we're tempted to hold back in one of two ways. A lot of us are tempted to hold back when it comes to stating our own beliefs. Stating our own opinion, stating what we believe is right and true. But there's also a lot of us who hold back from associating with those who don't agree with the things that we believe. I think an easier way to say it is, and what we're going to look at tonight, kind of the format, is a lot of us, we hold back when it comes to truth. There's also a lot of us where we hold back when it comes to grace. And so for our church, one of the things that we're obsessed with creating this culture is we want to be known as people who never hold back with truth and grace. What's really fun in John, it says that Jesus is full of grace and full of truth. Now what I love about that, it doesn't say He's half truth and half grace. What's really cool, and we have this in the gospel because we're believers in Him, we are fully full of truth and full of grace. On this passage in Jeremiah 29, every single time you read Scripture, whenever it talks about blessing, it's always saying, when I bless you, it's in the context, I will bless you when you never hold back when it comes to the truth, but also at the very same time, I will be blessing you if you also never hold back when it comes to grace. You guys see that? So Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." I love that verse. What's really fun is learning the context of that verse. So many people kind of, put it on a coffee cup. I'm taking this home. However, here's my argument. And we don't want to be a church that just comes to God just to bless us. The reality is that verse is in the context of God saying, you need to be never holding back in truth and never holding back in grace. And when you do that, I know the plans I have for you, plans for you to prosper. You guys see that? Look, verse 4 of Jeremiah 29. This is so good. It says, "This is what the Lord of armies," I love that title, "the God of Israel says to all the exiles I deported from Jerusalem to Babylon." So great context here. Jerusalem, the Jews weren't even in their home country. They were exported to Babylon. So they didn't like life at all. It says, "Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat their produce. Find wives for yourselves and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters to men in marriage, so that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there. Do not decrease. Pursue the well-being," underline that, "pursue the well-being of the city I have deported you to. Pray to the Lord on its behalf, for when it thrives, you will thrive." I'm obsessed with verse 7. When you understand verse 7, then you can properly understand verse 8 through 11. "For this is what the Lord of armies, the God of Israel, says. Don't let your prophets who are among you and your diviners deceive you, and don't listen to the dreams you elicit from them. For they are prophesying falsely to you in my name." What were they prophesying? They were saying, you were exiled in Babylon, everything's going to be okay. Don't talk to the Babylonians. There was a river in Babylon, and they stayed as close to the river, as furthest away from the capital of Babylon. They tried to stay as far as they could away, and the false prophets were saying, don't talk to them, don't look at them, stay here. It's only going to be a couple years, we're going to go back to Jerusalem. We know, look at verse 10, "For this is what the Lord says, when 70 years for Babylon are complete, I will attend to you and will confirm my promise concerning you to restore you to this place. For I know the plans I have for you. This is the Lord's declaration. Plans for your well-being, not for disaster, to give you a future and not a hope. Do you see how that completely changes the context of Jeremiah 29:11? Now, it doesn't change it to where we don't have hope anymore. What it does mean, though, in order for us to have hope, we have to be people who are giving out hope. I think that's really cool. We have such a cool opportunity. And look, it says the phrase, seek the well-being of the city. What he's referring to is shalom. Shalom means peace. Now, in the English, we think peace, it means absence of conflict. True, but what I love about the biblical word shalom, it also means not only absence of conflict, but it means flourishing in every area of society. So not only that your family's not fighting, but they're succeeding and living life well, and they all love each other, and you guys are helping one another. You guys see the difference? What's cool, and I love verse 7, it says, if you seek their shalom, that is when you will have shalom. And realize who the Babylonians are. They're savages. They don't, not the cool savage college student, you know what I'm saying? They hate the Jews. The Jews hate the Babylonians. They're enemies. But God is saying not only love, we think, okay, love your enemies, it means, no, literally when Jesus says love your enemies, it means seek the well-being of the city. Therefore, as a church, what we're obsessed with, number one, like let's just say Polytech students, we not only want to save as many students on the campus as possible, we want to make that university a better place to go to. We are seeking the welfare of that entire university. In the marketplace, at Harkins, we not only want Harkins to like us, we want Harkins theaters to be a better place because we go there. We want it to thrive. Because guess what? According to that verse, when they thrive, we thrive. So the most selfish thing to do is to be completely selfless. Point number one, what was on your bulletin, this is what we expect every leader to do. If you come to Passion Creek Church and we want to pour into you what our DNA is, we expect every leader to invest in the well-being of our city, no matter what tribe they're in. All of us love to seek the well-being of others if we like them. What makes us different? We never hold back. We never hold back even when it comes to people that most people would say, oh, they're nothing like you. They don't believe anything they believe. In fact, they hate you. I know. But I want them to thrive. How cool would that if we are a church who is marked by seeking the welfare? I know a lot of people are like, oh, welfare, the shalom, the flourishing of their life and their family's lives and the society's lives. That is the call that God calls us to. And so what we want to look at tonight, especially in your small group questions, really think about, I think the last question is, how can you bring shalom to those around you in your job? Like, what does this look like? I want you to really start processing these things. Now, today's going to be in two different sections. One, I want to talk about how do we as leaders never hold back from the truth. We never want to be people who hold themselves back from the truth. The other saying we have that I think goes perfectly along with this, we are more effective in our mission when we stay true to our distinction. Insecure leaders are tempted to hold back from their beliefs. And you think that means people will follow you more because you're like, oh, I don't want to offend you. But you are an insecure leader and nobody wants to follow an insecure leader. Insecure leaders are tempted. In fact, insecure leaders, bad leaders, do hold back from their beliefs. I love Romans 1:16. What does Paul say? For I am not ashamed of the gospel. So that's what we're looking at. Here's technically point number one under never hold back from the truth. Great leaders know that criticism is the cost of influence. Do you guys enjoy, I hope you guys listen to, what is it called? The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea podcast. And it's really talking about in our culture, people are hostile towards what we believe. So we have the option, what do we do? And I think we're going to talk about tonight, we need to be strategic. However, we have to also know this means we do not back down from the truth. We share it, but how do we share the truth in grace? But here's the thing. If you're going to make a difference in this world, you're going to tick some people off. Plain and simple. I love this quote. I don't even know who this guy is, but I looked it up and I'm like, this is great. I guess he's like a journalist. His name's Herbert Bayard Swope. He said this, I cannot give you a formula for success, but I can give you a formula for failure, which is try to please everybody. We've been studying the book of Corinth. Paul is continually attacked. People will attack your integrity in order to remove your authority, so get ready. People will try to attack who you are as a person so that when they finally determine in their mind that you're not worthy, then they don't have to listen to your message. So don't give them evidence of you being a terrible person, right? Walk in integrity, and then you have truth that people cannot ignore. But people will always attack your integrity, and it doesn't feel good. I just had this happen to me about 3 weeks ago, and I went and cried in a hole for about 3 hours, right? But I realized I'm not going to say sorry because what I said was true. And I'm pretty sure I said it in love, so let's move on. It was just a misunderstanding, but let's move on. Now, here's another thing. People, always remember this. Don't take it personal, because people like to be liked more than they like you. So if somebody says, hey, I don't like this guy, they're not going to stand up for you because they don't want to start trouble. So you're like, yeah, I don't like this guy either. It's a terrible thing, but people like to be liked more than they like you. A lot of leadership, I love it. What is it? So much leadership is a thick skin but a tender heart. So great leaders know that criticism is the cost of influence. Next one, I love this one. Great leaders speak because they have something to say. Bad leaders speak because they have to say something. In other words, anybody watch The Office? Do not be Michael Scott. Right? Where it's like, what is he saying? He just, I'm the leader though, so I have to go say something. If you don't have anything worth to say, so when it comes to never holding back from the truth, what I also mean, if you cannot contribute to the conversation, don't contribute to the conversation. If you don't have any truth to share, then just move on. Proverbs has this consistently. Throughout the Proverbs, it always contrasts the wise and the fool. And it says, those who guard their lips preserve their lives, but those who speak rashly will come to ruin. That's Proverbs 13:3. Proverbs 17:28, it says, even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. I love that. So we have to know, as people who are truth tellers, if we don't have something if we're not contributing to it, then don't say anything at all. That can be sometimes the most wisest thing for us to do in never holding back from the truth. Here's another one that I think is really big. Great leaders protect and then correct. Here's what I mean by that. Several times, even just in my 2.5 years of being the pastor here at Passion Creek, there's been times where people come up to me and say, hey, so-and-so is doing this. So-and-so said that. I don't think this person's doing this right thing. You know, and it kind of sounds like gossip. So what I try to do at first is protect them. Say, well, let me have them defend themselves first, right? Did they really say that about you, or is that what you interpreted what was said about you? So let's stop. I'm not going to entertain this conversation. Let's bring them over. Hey, you're my friend. You're my friend. What happened? What'd you say? There's misunderstanding. Let's figure this out. So first, protect. Protect them. Don't immediately say, oh yeah, of course, that guy's a jerk, right? With your children, something I love about my parents, anytime somebody said I did something wrong, their first instinct was to protect me and say, okay, what is your side of the story first? But also, my parents did a great job of my mom has kids where their parents are like, my kid does no wrong. They knew I did wrong. You know, so it's a balance there, but you first protect, but then you correct. If you are not willing to have tough conversations, you are not ready to be a leader. Correcting is so big for people's lives. To be a leader means you have tough conversations, but it's always done in love. You're saying, hey, I protect you, I love you, but here's what's happening. Can we fix this? I think that's really big. That's good for parenting too, right? I mean, so much of this is. Now, here's the last one for never hold back from the truth. Great leaders use truth to empower, not to impress. So what's really bad about me, so you guys ever take the Strengths Finder? We almost did that Strengths Finder test where like the top 5 strengths you have. My top strength is input, so meaning I love learning the most random stuff ever, and I love sharing it with as many people as possible. Like, I just love that. I mean, you guys know me, so you guys already know. This is something I struggle with of like, oh, let me impress you with a random fact that literally does nothing for your life. Like, so this is something, let me just say, like, I'm speaking from inexperience here, but I'm realizing so much of truth. Why did Jesus ever say anything? He said, everything he said was to empower you to live a holy, Christ-centered life. It's not like, oh, like a lot of people say, like, oh, those rhymes. I know they're cheesy, or sometimes people say it's impressive. It's literally thinking, how can I get you to remember this? Okay, I'm going to put it this way so you can remember, because I want to empower you to where you remember this principle beyond today, after lunch. So how can you, when you think about people, why are you telling them what you're telling them? Have you ever thought about that? Like, so much, we just say, we never think, why did I tell them that? But think to yourself, before you go talk to them, why am I really telling them this? But great leaders use truth to empower. It's about life change. It's not about getting more fans for you. Now, never hold back from grace. I think a lot of insecure leaders hold back from those with differing beliefs. Okay, I want to be willing to talk to anybody about anything about my beliefs and their beliefs, because I'm so confident in what we have that, am I making sense? I don't even know if I'm going the right way. But I just know, okay, if you are presenting something to me that seems false about Christianity, it gets me excited because I'm about to learn more about my own faith. And it's going to get even stronger. But so many people, and I don't want us to be a culture of this church, we hold back from grace. We say, okay, I will tell you the truth, but I'm not going to share it in love. Here's point number one under that. Great leaders know that making a difference is so much better than making a point. I think it was the great theologian and rapper Propaganda, I'm not sure, but he said, our job isn't to defend God, our job is to define God. By the way, we don't come up with our own definitions, we use God's word for that. But our job isn't to defend him. And if somebody says something wrong about him, you make sure you battle them and you make sure that they know that you're wrong and that you're right? That they're so evil and that you're... No. It is so much better to make a difference than it is to make a point. Having to win every single argument is pointing to insecurity in your life. If you have to win every argument about God, it's not so much that you love God so much, it's probably that you're insecure and you're finding your identity in being so smart. And you want to make sure that everybody knows how smart you are. Don't you love how Jesus, when he was presented things, he never answered things, he just came back with another question. Like, he didn't feel like he was trapped in a box because he knew he wanted to make a difference more than just make a point. I mean, apologetics is so important, but there's that balance of full of truth, but also full of grace. Next one we have, great leaders know that speaking in the right tone is often the greatest way that love can be shown. Every single time I hate my sermons, it's not necessarily because of the content, because I studied all week and I was like, okay, I'm content enough, this might be good. Every time I walk away and tell Jordan that was terrible, it's because I hated the way I said it. Not what I said, but the way I said it. I know we talked about this a lot before, but so much what I'm trying to do, especially guys who are younger in my season of life, it's not, hey, you should do this. It's, hey, this is what God is teaching me. Isn't this incredible? Let's do this thing together. It's the tone difference. It is such a turnoff. Whenever I go to Disneyland and a guy's holding a sign like repent, you're going to hell and all this stuff, like that tone, like, is that wrong? Technically, it's the truth, but it has not, it's so tone deaf. Like, I don't want to be a part of his religion when he does that, right? It's like, just get away from me. Tone is huge. Tone is unbelievably underrated. And one of the greatest ways, I want to do the rhyme again. One of the greatest ways that love can be shown is we really emphasize our tone. I said it wrong. Okay, speaking in the right tone is often the greatest way that love can be shown. Meaning, being bold does not mean obnoxious. Proverbs 15:1, it says, a gentle answer churns away anger, but a harsh word stirs up wrath. You guys have those people in your life where it's like, dude, I just wish you talked different. Like, everywhere you go, you start a fight because your eyebrows are like this, you know? Like, everything you do, it just sounds angry. You're telling me how great the Grand Canyon was, but it sounds like I'm being yelled at right now. You know? Like, really figure out your tone. Like me, like, I do this for a reason. It's not because like, it gets people and like, oh, you're excited about something. And I am excited, but also sometimes in tone, you need to get really quiet and make very profound point. And then, so you learn your tone. You guys were like, what is he going to say? See, that's the point of communication. It's so powerful. Tone is huge. This is a side note. It doesn't really go together, but my youth pastor always said this, like, how do we share the gospel in grace? And he said, always do this: pray, pursue, persuade. Constantly. He says, pray for that person. How many of you pray for that person before you actually share the gospel to them? Because I think that readies their heart. I think that also gives you confidence never to hold back of the truth or grace when you first pray for them. You care for them more. Pray for them and then pursue them. Find ways to meet up with them. Just be friends with them. Pursue conversations. See if there is a fork in the road where you can bring up Jesus, and then persuade. It doesn't mean force. It just means, hey, this is what I believe. Persuade them. Talk about the truth in a loving way. In a tone that's say, look, you can believe whatever you believe, but here's what I believe. Because our job is not to be lawyers. Our job is to be a witness. A witness doesn't know the whole case, but it does know what they have seen, and that's your job. I had to include this one, guys. I really liked it. It's a little different from the last point. Great leaders learn to be the tone setter because it makes you and those around you better. Meaning, what I've learned, never hold back in grace, and I think we should never hold back in the moment. When there is a moment where you can stop and really recognize, okay, let me create a moment here to where God can be among us. When we went to Thailand, we had a lot of those moments. I really recognized that when I went to Israel. When I went to Israel with my brother-in-law, he was really good. He's a worship leader. That's kind of what they do. He would bring people in a moment, and he would get serious at the right time, and he would slow everything down and make people reflect. He would set the tone. Look, at this time right now, let's reflect on what God is doing. You as a leader, it's up to you to set the tone. Like if you say, oh, man, how was that conversation? You're like, I don't know, it's just kind of all over the place. See, realize you could have led that moment into something else. You as the leader can dictate the tone and change the direction of the conversation. If there's a lot of anger, you can slow it down. You can make it kinder. You can maybe, you know what I'm saying? We as leaders, we are tone setters. I also put this down. My job as a pastor is to be a communicator, but I'm learning more and more. It's also to be a cultivator. Cultivating an environment, meaning readying it, getting things ready. What I loved us worshiping before we start. That is setting the tone. But how are you in your own personal life? How can you set the tone? Great leaders make their living by giving. Never hold back from grace because there's always more than enough to give out. I love this. I mean, pastors say this all the time, but you can never outgive God. And great leaders know that, and they try to. I love it. If you try to outgive God, He will prove that He will outgive you. So be a giver. Leaders are givers. They're not known as takers, they're known as givers. Winston Churchill, he says, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. This is one of the greatest ways we can be distinct among our community. Do you know, in our world, people spend their entire lives trying to hoard as much money as possible. And as Christians, we give away as much money as possible. Like when we gather together and we tithe, we're saying, God, I'm satisfied, I'm content, I don't need money for my security, I'm so secure, and I want other people's life to be changed. I'm going to give 10% of what I've earned back to you. Because I'm not trusting in my money to give me significance. I'm trusting in you to give me my security. It's really good. Proverbs 11:24 says, one man gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous man will prosper, and he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. I love that. Something that I've never understood. My dad, he's a giver. Giver. I'm always like, Dad, did you know we're also a family? Like, he finds a guy on the street, what do you need? Like, you need a truck? It's like, whoa, I need a truck. You know what I'm saying? But constantly, what blows me away is he always finds a way to make more money. I'm like, how did you do that? You know, so why are you giving this away? But God does that. God gives to those who give. You can never outgive God. It's been one of the funnest, is that a word? Just funner, isn't it? Anyways, it's been one of the most incredible things to see is to watch him, because for me, I struggle. I need money as security. I need a certain amount in savings, right? But he's like, no, let's give it, because God's going to do something in this moment. Never hold back from grace. And I think one of the greatest ways we can be gracious to people is with our money. Gift cards, you know? items, of blessing them. That goes above and beyond, and that's what great leaders do. Adrian Rogers, one of my favorite pastors, he said this: if you need encouragement, give it. If you need love, give it. Whatever you need, give it away. And that is how the kingdom of God works. And it goes back to what I talked about last time, I believe, with the God of abundance. Because we believe God is so abundant. And God, He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and He owns all of the hills as well. When we give, we can rest confidently that God blesses us as we give, and we are giving and giving and giving. We never hold back from truth because we believe in it. It is what saved our lives. We never hold back from grace because we believe in it and it's what saved our life.